Hey, so this is a 1954 Dodge project that I've been working on for some time, doing some major mods to it. We'll get into that more. We'll do a catch-up video. This is the dash that I built. What I'm doing is working on undercovers to cover the modern heating system in here and to make it look like a big truck. This is a tow truck. I ran into a little bit of a, not an issue, I guess, an adjustment that I wanted to make. So what happened is this fit just a little bit nicer by moving it over by just a touch. So what I have here is I shifted it all over, which opened a gap up here. So what we're going to do is try and deal with that gap. Basically what I'm going to do is it's lightly bolted in place. I'm just going to push it up into place here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a datum line or a reference line. And what I have is a pair of dividers with a scribe on it. And all I'm going to do is follow the contour of the body, set back a little bit. And I'm going to scribe a line on here so I can keep the exact contour that I want. And then I can measure over to straighten this bend out and redo it. So I'm not sure if you can see the scribe on the video, but this is copying because there's complex angles on this. And this should be, you should be able to recreate that angle and make it fit really nice and tight. So the undercover I have out, and what we're dealing with is, hopefully you can see this little scribed line. I'm not sure if you can, but it is right here. Runs up along there. And what I'm going to have to do is unfold this and then measure over the amount that we need. And I mean, I picked a rough number. We could have or should have maybe set this up beforehand. But if I go from the tip to the outside of this, we're about 50 thou over 3/4. And I'm sure that we're going to be able to wiggle in the screw holes 50 thou. And so anyways, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and mark it out, unfold it, and figure out where we need to put the new line on it. It's pretty rough. It's going to be on a curve. We're not going to be able to see it a whole bunch, but just roughing it out, trying to keep the curves that I've built into this, and yeah, just keep hammering it out. We're stretching it by hammering it this way, but it's right on a curve. It isn't going to matter if that's a little bit stretched out. We'll be able to fix it out. So just double checking that I'm about at the same. Now what I'm going to do is the line that I have on there, that's scribed, even though it's not straight, it's actually got a curve to it. I'm just going to use this as a wall to rescribe the new bend line that I want. And I'll be moving this square as I need to for the curve, but I can scribe a new line on it now. There's lots of different ways to do this. This is just how I do it. I'm trying to hold the square at a 90-degree angle, because if I lean it over, it's actually going to change that distance. So I'm trying to keep it as straight up as I can. Now I'm going to transfer it with felt so that I can see it, because that scribe line is pretty hard to see. And what I want to do is, normally when you do a 90-degree bend, like in the brake or whatever, you calculate for the thickness of the material. This, I'm just evening the line up so that we can wiggle it over. And by not using a tape measure to make this line and using the scribe, we are actually getting the exact distance. So about the wiggle room for the screw holes for that 50 thou they're talking about. So I'm consuming the whole line that I scribed. And you could go either way, it doesn't matter. So at this bend, it kind of sucks because it's trying to tend towards, I had originally stretched this, thought it'd be just easier to slice it. And anyways, now when I'm trying to bend it, it's trying to go to the end where that bend is there. So I have the proper angles and everything. This is really kind of rough work, so I'm just going to use the edge of the table to correct this. So it's a curved line. I have all sorts of different pieces of solids and whatever, and I try and put it above the lid on the table so you get good angle action, but it's a curved line, so I'm going to use this curved dolly because this is a straight edge to be able to correct that line. Because this was so rough, it has little divots and everything in it, and using this little dolly, really nice square edges, really flat, I can actually take and stretch out some of these little tiny peck marks in there. A layer of build primer would probably get rid of it fairly easily. It feels really good. I'm just going to give it a tiny little bit of a dress to remove most of that. But using the sander, I'm using 80 grit, orbital, it really highlights those marks. So this is really square corner, so I can really get a crisp corner, and that's what I wanted to do, is so that where it lines up, I have a decently crisp corner. I have a little tiny bit of a ding here I'll iron out. That lines up with the cut mark where I had originally stretched. I wish I would have just stretched it now, but these things happen. So I'm just going to take and work out the little mark there. So the result is nice, even, fits the groove proper. I still have to do the welds in the corners in this little slit. I'm really happy with how it turned out. The op is nice and even, fits very well. Yeah, we just got to make everything fit around existing stuff, which is really cool because this thing is going to be incredibly serviceable. And so now what we need to do is figure out how to hide this mess. I molded the top of the steering column into the dash so that it has clearance and moves around and reasonably works properly. And now we need to join the middle area, cover all this footwell stuff up. The issue is lots of times you can just go, you know what, this is exactly what I'm gonna do, and I can take a template and I can make it. This one I'm a little bit like, what am I gonna do with this? So I have purposely shaped and rolled these so I can simplify my corners, make them in, out, whatever. This hangs down below the frame that's in the dash. And I don't want to be restrictive on the foot area, so I'm going to be coming a little bit higher, and I want to mold it into that edge nice. So we'll probably have to address this edge a little bit. I am just going to set up here to try and figure out what I'm gonna do. I think I need to just grab some tin and start forming, and I think this is gonna be multiple pieces. I want it to match, I want it to blend in, so there's gonna be a little bit of mucking around to make it work right. And I guess we'll just grab some steel and see what happens. Kind of hard to see, but I made this so it clears all of the pieces underneath there. This is my template. Because that curve, it isn't straight up and down, it comes in at a curve over there. That also brings this on an angle. So this here, we're gonna have to actually marry it in on an angle. So I think it might look pretty cool, or I might straighten that, but I'm probably just gonna make this a couple inches longer. Of course, we're gonna need this a couple inches longer. Make my marks a little darker because the English wheel takes it off. And we want to make sure our lines are nice and straight, nice and happy. Doesn't look as messy. So I have a step coming down, and then this is quite a bit lighter than this. This is a big step down because hopefully our next panel we're going to be able to mold into this. But these edges right here are a mess because of the two overlapping. I could have used a poly wheel on it, but this is very easy for me to clean up with a chisel. And so as well, this edge is getting bent, so this line right here, we can easily correct that. So this is going to be the panel that goes below the column. So this kind of sloshy looking, weird looking thing here turns more into a crisp kind of point there. So I bent that at about 55 degrees. That's kind of what I had figured. And if you notice here, I took the fingers out of the brake on this side. So this is only bent because we are actually going to be angling this down and bending this on a bit of an angle. Normally, if I wanted the outside of this to be kicked, when you're bending it back so that this bend is even, I would be kicking the bottom down. But when I'm doing this curve, and I leave the bottom straight, once the curve is done, it's actually going to have a really neat kind of kick up, and I'll show you what that does. So it's kind of tapered down, really rough. When this gets shrunk and stretched, it's going to really define the corner. So not worried about that at all. I'll bend the bottom, And when all this is bent, this is a straight line, but because it's angled back and got so many curves, it's going to actually, this is going to be bending back, which bends it up because it's on an angle. So this side, even though it's straight, it's going to look kicked up. So completely eyeballing this right now. I'm going to be cutting off a bunch of this, but I'm going to start bending the curves into this. So I want this to curve down right now, a bit of an angle. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to make this longer to make it curve, and this one shorter. So I'm going to shrink this and stretch this. So starting to curve. Now the issue is this is a very rigid line. So is this. So I actually am going to have to hand work to get this stuff to want to bend because it is stiff and it's resisting the bend. So it is literally a bunch of little tiny hammer work. And as this goes, I just need to work it along. So now I'm getting this to bend here by small taps along that edge. And I want to be very careful that I don't beat this edge up, or otherwise I'll take the depth of this out. I want to keep it looking the same. Is coming into it nicely. Once it's started, it wants to keep going. Gonna have to do a little bit of work because there's concave in there. So we'll form these out and it'll turn out really nice. We have these compound bends, all of this stuff fighting. We've created a bit of a bow in this. So this right here is bowed. And if you can see, we started a curve here and down here, but this is gonna fight it. This is what I'm talking about, the tin canning. So we're gonna have to, do some hammer work and fix in here, but you're going to be able to see it now is wanting to go the opposite directions. So I just measured and we have a 3 1/4 to about 4 1/4 inches to get back to straight here. We're well within.